Shieldwall is a hard to define game, at least from what I have experienced with it. It will have you reminded of Mordhau, especially with the landscape, but then of Chinese checkers and then a hint of StarCraft. I know that's perhaps more convoluted, but if you know those games and you see the footage or my gameplay video of this game linked in the description, you will know what I'm talking about. The game is quite early in the development and new content seems to be coming into the game, which makes it more exciting for me since there's always something to look forward to until the game is completely fleshed out. The updates do seem to be coming out in a reasonable time frame unlike some other games, but it's too early to say for sure whether this will continue. One thing to note would be that the developer of this game has very similar games developed before, but he seems to have abandoned them. The thing is that those games didn't do very well compared to this one, so I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt to the dev for continuing the development on this. Let's focus back to the game now. The levels in the game do feel to be thought out well enough and do flow quite well for how early it is in the game. At this point, I should mention that the levels are actually named after historical battles that actually took place, and the story about that is attached to the level when you click on it, which is a good touch. This obviously doesn't mean that the battle is supposed to simulate the real one in any way, it's literally there for namesake. The graphics, I don't really need to say, aren't necessarily the forte of this game, but they're still pleasant, I would say. However, the level design itself is quite prone to be cheesed. I can pretty much follow a very bookish style of tactic and easily win all the levels. Now I will say that the latest level added to the game, the Battle of Alicia in Act 1, deviates from this quite a bit, and I found myself having no certain victory as easily. A victory is still there, it's just trickier and mistakes cost a lot to the point that you will lose while you think you are winning, which is quite welcome and seems like this gives direction to the path forward in the levels that are about to come. If that's hard to understand, basically the dev added a new mechanic that enemies can call reinforcements like mercenary armies anywhere on the map on your territories even if you're attacking their territory while they're fighting you, making you fall back or focus on a different build with more defenders on your territories. Now the map in the campaign screen is quite large and is focused on what looks like the area that the Roman Empire had under them, so there's no reason to doubt that in the future that's going to be the trajectory of adding content in the game. The biggest challenge that I see with this is how are the devs going to make the battles feel non-repetitive? Maybe they have an idea in their mind already, but certainly so far, each level has had something or the other unique about it, but in the future, it could devolve into just mixing and matching mechanics from previous levels and mushing them together to create a new level which might get stale very quick. There are, however, beyond just level designs and mechanics, builds that you can have, and they are dependent on a special unit in the game called the standard. But it relies on some very basic principles found in other games like more attack type, or more heal type, or more gold per minute type, or a mix and match of these three. This is far from a quality build making thing in the game as there's so few options and certain builds are really not viable out of the three. To give you an example, the GPM build is basically useless after you unlock everything in the team upgrade section, which are basically just squad upgrades, and you can unlock all of them as opposed to a tech tree type of situation where you have to make a choice between this or that. I'm not saying that tech trees make you have a choice, but it would be better, I guess, that the player has a choice than just unlocking everything. To top that off, if you make a high attack build, you can get more territory easily, making you get high enough amounts of gold easier, so claiming GPM slots in the standard build slots would become useless. So what makes this game enjoyable then if there's so many weaknesses in the build hindering replayability? I would say completing the campaign and the levels as a new experience every time one is added makes it very enjoyable as you cheese the AI, and attacking the opponent feels very fleshy, which makes it worth it. The opponents don't feel like attack sponges, and trapping two AI opponents to fight each other makes you feel like a tactical war general without the mental calculations of a more turn-based style strategy game or something like Warhammer style games. It's the novelty of those levels that contains the most fun to be gained. However, on the topic of replayability, there's something that I have to mention, which is a feature in the game by the name of Battle. Basically, what this allows you to do is to make a custom battle of your own with attributes assigned to the AI to make the game more difficult and challenging or of just a different kind. Basically like a custom scenario. Now, I haven't really dabbled into this option much, but the maps are limited to the ones that are so far in the game. And I would say if this is one of your starter strategy games and you really dig these style of games, this would probably give you heaps of fun. To this, I should add that maybe having workshop support with mods and scenarios could make a world of difference, but that decision ultimately hangs with the devs. Certainly, it's not hard to see that multiplayer could have a lot of potential to be fun, but it has to be done carefully, and I don't think the game is ready for it now. Maybe far out in the future with some heavy changes to the build meta and more variables to balance out with. Now, usually at this point, I would rate a game, but since this is very much early access, I don't know if I should give it a rating as there's tons of room for improvement. But if I were to assume that this is the finished product, I would still say it's a 6.5 out of 10 for being $10. Well, that's all I've got to say about it. Make sure you subscribe to see more Shieldwall gameplay as new levels come out, and also for game reviews and general gaming related content. A like would be appreciated if you felt like your time wasn't wasted, and I'll see you guys in the next one.